Hey everybody, welcome back to When Creatives Thrive, a Create Baltimore podcast. I'm Stuart Rustin. And before we get going, remember to like, comment, follow, subscribe, whatever you can do to help us continue to tell creative stories. On this episode, we feature Red Giant, an artist-run gallery, studio, and workshop located in the Bromo Arts District of Baltimore City. Red Giant's mission is to create a platform for art and artists by curating exhibits embracing their neighborhood to develop cultural offerings that bring opportunities to local creatives. They're powered by ideals of access, inclusion, experimentation, and community development. We also discuss Red Giant's participation in the Scout Art Fair at Artscape, and how festivals are emerging as a mainstream strategy to elevate art and connect with collectors. Festivals like Scout are also an effective way to get cities like Baltimore in on a national and sometimes international art conversation. In studio today are two of the founding members, Mary Gagler and Patrick Bell, and a quick shout out to their third founding member, Stefan Callender. Mary, Patrick, welcome to When Creatives Thrive. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
First, let's start by setting the scene. I'd like to hear from both of you, but before there was a Red Giant, how and why did you end up here in Baltimore to pursue a creative lifestyle?
That's a great question. Yeah, I was living in New York and Brooklyn I was there for 12 years all told. And I had just graduated from the City College of New York with a master's in museum studies.
Oh, cool.
And so while I was doing that was part-time so that I could also run this, an artist-run gallery in Brooklyn called Amos Eno Gallery. And that was started in 1974, and they had just a history of hiring outside directors to kind of run the administration and curate a few shows a year. And after graduating and at the beginning of the pandemic, I was like, I don't really want to get my roots deeper in New York. I want to go to a place where there's more possibility. And East Coast cities, I'm an East Coast person, so Baltimore just had everything that I wanted. I also have family here too. So I came to Baltimore and just started trying to find my next move. I switched over to metalworking, and then that was kind of my deeper dive into my own art practice.
Oh, interesting.
But yeah, then seeking out, what kinds of cultural organizations might be available to me here in Baltimore. What could I contribute? Started to become the question after a few years.
Patrick, what about you?
Yeah, I think possibilities is a good way to talk about it. I had graduated in 2020, and because of the pandemic, was just doing some online teaching stuff, doing some local stuff. I moved back with some friends in Pittsburgh, so doing things there and just trying to figure out what the next move was.
Right.
And then the following year, got some opportunities in a couple places in the country, but one of them was Baltimore. And it just made the most sense. I mean, I work primarily with ceramics, and so when looking at the opportunities that I got, I looked at what was the sort of ceramic scene in the area. And for those who don't know, we have Baltimore Clayworks here, which is a nationally recognized.
Yeah, it's an incredible.
Yeah, and so I knew that would be a place that I would like to be associated with and get to know better. And it was also the only opportunity that I got that guaranteed me a studio, which at that time and all through grad school for as long as I can remember, is pretty much the most important element. Nothing was paying great, but one of them had a place for me to work. So I moved to Baltimore, and I worked at the Community College of Baltimore County for a year. I had my studio there. And then the following year, I got the residency at Baltimore Clayworks, which is kind of luckily for me and the people participating, it's kind of a long residency. So I was there for 3 years.
Oh, wow.
So I really started to get, understanding the city and its art community through Baltimore Clayworks. And so, that was a big draw to me. In addition, the other two opportunities were sort of in the middle of the country, so further away from New York and still pretty far from LA. So it felt like those sort of artistic hubs were just going to be further away from me unless I went to Baltimore, which, I definitely benefit from that a lot, getting up to New York and Philly when I can. I also have family in Philly, so closer to family is definitely a factor for me as well.
So I love this story. Tell us about how you actually made the connection. Like, when did you two meet, and how, why?
So yeah, fall of 2022 at the Spring Break Art Fair, Patrick and I each independently just idolized that art fair. We just, it's such an incredible collection of innovative curating and innovative artists. Kind of, it's the creme de la creme in my opinion. And that's it's such a thrill to exhibit there as an artist. That was the first year I was showing my own work. I had participated as a curator a few years prior, but it kind of felt like my coming out party with showing my own sculptural
That's
work.
super cool.
Yeah.
And right down the hall, Patrick was showing his sculptures.
Yeah, that was my first time showing in New York, and I was showing with a friend from grad school. So yeah, we just set up a show together, and it was the two of us. And we had made friends during install with the person that Mary was exhibiting with. And it came out that I was from Baltimore, and he was like, "Do you know Mary? She's also from Baltimore. You two might be the only people from Baltimore in this entire building right now." And so, yeah, it's a very fun story with a lot of twists and turns to it that we do. It's a fun party story, but it is funny to think that we both lived in Baltimore, didn't know each other, met each other in New York at an art show, and then sort of got to know each other better back here in Baltimore.
Yeah, David B. Fry is a great artist and a great connector of people, and so yeah, he was eager to connect us, and yeah, I think meeting each other, my first thought was like, it's like, oh, okay, I didn't have a collaborator here in Baltimore. Like there wasn't, I didn't know who I was going to set out with. I didn't feel that I could do it on my own. And that was an interesting part. It's like, oh, wow, we have the same, kind of the same, like alignment of ideals and what we're looking for in the contemporary art world.
Right.
And yeah, so that was really exciting to just meet and realize how much we had in common, and that we also had the same home base.
Yeah. I mean, would serendipity be is that a word to
it's
throw out there? Is that too
Sure.
romantic?
I'd have to Google that exactly what serendipity. I mean, it feels serendipitous.
It was romantic, I have to say. Although I thought, well, okay, if I just met a great friend who, we're going to work together,
Totally.
we can get things done together. I feel like we have we have so much in common that that we can make each other better and like push forward together. And yeah, then it was exciting to find out that there was a love connection there.
Yeah.
That's super cool. Wild that it happens however many miles away and then you get to bring it back with you.
Yeah.
Like that's cool.
Yeah. And really, I mean, I think special for Mary, it was her first time showing, but you had done Spring Break a couple times before. So, it's extra funny for me that that's the first time I had ever done that fair. And not only came back with that sort of fair experience, but with a relationship that has lasted ever since.
Well, let's talk about when you got back to Baltimore, you settle in, Mary, like you were saying, you kind of recognize that you both have similar ideals, maybe philosophies about gallery spaces, maybe potentially working together. How does Red Giant start to percolate and form?
Yeah. I mean, I think it took a couple of years after we got back. I think it was probably after I moved in over at Remington. Like, I think maybe we both had it in our heads, but we hadn't really put it out into the ether, or at least spoken it out loud to each other until maybe 2.5 years ago, when we started to really talk about how exciting a gallery would be. And then my residency at Clayworks also ended in fall, so that's it. It was kind of a very convenient situation, a very lucky situation, in that we had been talking about galleries and we had been looking, maybe in the last year and a half, we had both been searching with a lot more intentionality, like really reaching out to people, talking to people, making leads, following up on leads, this whole like sort of rabbit hole that we both went down trying to find the space. And then, sort of ironically, it kind of just ended up falling into our laps. I mean, it was, in a way, it was a product of that searching because, the person who sort of inevitably led us to that space, knew somebody who we were talking to and knew somebody who we were talking to. So there's a connection there, but it kind of, it was kind of a right place, right time sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, right. And you say 2.5 years ago, which was 6 months into our relationship, and finding a gallery space kind of became like a bit, basically.
Yeah.
I mean, and every city that we visited, we were like scouting out gallery spaces. And it's like, oh, well, this could become
It'd be
gallery.
a great gallery.
Oh,
Look at
that would
that
be
vacant building.
Oh, look, and we can live in the basement there. That's perfect. So that was kind of the
You bonded over finding a gallery.
Yeah.
it was visioning for sure. And so when we're visiting Philadelphia, that was kind of like, it seemed for a while like that was what we were going to do. Then we were going to shift gears and move to Philadelphia, which would have been a huge uprooting for both of us, of course. But yeah, getting closer to Patrick's family. And what we thought was like, okay, well, yeah, and there'll be more affordable spaces there and this bigger art scene that we can plug into. But, this idea of authoring our own corner of the art world seemed like, Philadelphia would be the hospitable place for that. But yeah, the exciting thing was that as we kind of got to know each other better and got to know Baltimore better, it just started to become clear that actually Baltimore is the place with the possibility. Baltimore is the place. Like, we don't have to leave here. Like, there's so much growth potential in all these neighborhoods and so many people eager to, make their own way, that, authoring the field in Baltimore was what we wanted to do.
Can you kind of describe that push-pull for me? Because it sounds like something that's sort of been this reoccurring thing. Like, in this conversation, we're in Baltimore, we're in New York, we're in Philly, but we're back here, but we're sort of there. Like, what's drawing people to these different locations? It sounds like there's sort of pros and cons to each, but it sounds like, again, Baltimore was the place that ultimately made the most sense. Like, what are artists thinking about? What are they struggling with? What are they considering as they plan where they're going to live and work?
Yeah. I think New York is kind of its own beast that I can touch on. But, when we talk about Philly and Baltimore, I think maybe the back and forth there is they maybe have a more robust art scene. There's more people there. There's more spaces there. But the ability to sort of get into that scene in terms of gallery director or even having your work seen is just that much more competitive. And that's the sort of push-pull between moving closer to New York, where, I feel like maybe more than any city in the world, it's like that's the most competitive place to try to have your art seen or do something, original or that is your own.
Right.
And so, there is a really beautiful art scene here in Baltimore, and the big, thing that it has over Philly is that, like, it took us a while to find it, but there are spaces, there are people, like ourselves and many others, who are actually here, make lovely art, and are really excited about building something. Right. Which, again, not to say that Philadelphia and New York don't have those. Those people are absolutely there. You need to have people with those kinds of drives. But I think just in terms of that, like, scene building and that sense of growth, there is a very unique opportunity here in Baltimore. We are situated near those more metropolitan areas, but we have our sort of own unique thing. We don't end up as this kind of like satellite of a different city. We get some of the benefits, but we have our own sort of unique flavor, which I think is important.
Yeah, it sounds like there's a lot of accessibility. There's a lot of opportunity here. Mary, how do you feel about it?
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing that Baltimore has that artists need is vacancy. We need to have just spaces where there's an opening to step in and make something happen. And, it just has so much to do with the cost of living. And, do you have the free time? Like, do you have free hours to make things happen in your own practice? And then let alone like creating something for others to enjoy or plug into. Like, can you make all of that happen? And I think, that what Baltimore has is that kind of flexibility. Like, I meet more people with free time here who are, like working and like, they're on a grind and everything.
Yeah.
But they also have a passion project going on too.
Right.
I mean, and
I know. It's insane.
it's really a beautiful thing. And I do feel that it's unique to Baltimore.
For sure.
Yeah.
Definitely. Like you need a little bit more gas in the tank, right? Like if
Yeah.
you're totally stripped of that energy, how do you pour it back into something that you're passionate about? Like definitely a struggle for sure. Okay. So you find a space, seems like it's the right fit. What is the strategy behind Red Giant?
I mean, yeah, I think Patrick, leaving the Clayworks studio was a big determining factor. I think, my studio was in my living room most of my time here in Baltimore, and yeah, I think just that you were coming from this place where there was this intentional community building going on in a shared studio space. I think we kind of wanted to emulate that as much as
cool.
possible. I rented a studio for about 7-8 months in a go-kart warehouse, and I was the only.
No way.
Yes,
You
no.
are. That is a lie.
It is a cool spot.
It was really
It
cool.
was, yeah.
It was very cool, and yeah, I liked it. It was cold, and it had personality. It was exciting, but there weren't any other artists there.
Right.
I would talk about. I loved the people that I met there, but they weren't necessarily artists or devoting their lives to art.
Yeah. Different wavelength.
It's
go-karts.
Yeah, it's very, very different.
Super cool. Another passion project, but
Sure,
yeah,
that's true. It is creative in its own way.
yeah, and so I think that was a big motivator. I do think that the gallery idea and the studio idea were separate most of the time. Like is the thing that came together for Red Giant was that we realized, we could do both. We could do this together.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, up until I think it was the day before Mary was contacted about this space, I had sort of soft committed to another studio space. I had just done a studio tour. It's this new studio in town. I said, wow, this is great. Love to be here. Let's continue talks. I'm interested. That was a few months before my residency ended, so it was kind of under the stipulation that I'm not in a position to move studios for maybe another month or two, but I'd basically, in my mind, committed to that studio. And then I think literally the next day or 2 days later, Mary said, hey, look at this space. It's really great. We can have galleries and studios. And it's funny, you asked this question because when we got the space, when we sort of committed to the space, what it was going to be was still in flux. And so originally when Mary had contacted me about this, I said, well, maybe you have your studio there and we have some other studios there, and I'm just interested in the gallery portion because I have a studio figured out. And that was before I had done a site tour, and it really had won me over. The idea of building something was exciting. I mean, it was really bare bones when we got it. But the idea of, sort of being able to establish my own community. I mean, all of the people whose the studio I was going to move into are people who I have a lot of respect for and would have looked forward to that. But, choosing people who we work with, offering, this was a couple studios. I mean, right now we have 5 artists in there, and we were even considering expanding that a little bit more. So it might have been 6 or 7 at some point. And so, the idea of sort of recreating this community that, I would have had at that other space, but doing it with a little bit more agency and intentionality, and then starting to sort of like literally see the space, sort of envisioning it and going, oh yeah, the gallery's here and my studio's right below it. And, that kind of like interchange could be really great for me, which, ultimately, I think if my studio was in a different site, the things that I'd be able to do at Red Giant would be greatly diminished. So the idea of it being a studio for me and others and Mary, what it is now really developed over maybe the first month or two of actually moving into the space.
What are you thinking about as you're building that community? Is there sort of like a criteria when you're reaching out to artists? Who fits at Red Giant?
Yeah.
Well, I think friendly people, that was kind of the deciding factor. I don't know if I know any unfriendly artists in Baltimore.
It's true, you do, yeah.
As a disclaimer, but I think that was a big part of it. Like who needs a space first of all, and would benefit from this kind of, having this conversation between studios. So yeah.
I mean, Shay was a fun choice. So Shay Kister is one of our artists, and she started the Clayworks residency when I did. So we shared, a sort of open plan studio space for 3 years. And I said, we both need studio spaces. So Shay moved in. Isaac Kim was somebody who, he has his own sort of artist collective that I met him through, Flying House. He's part of it. And he's just one of those people that I saw at every opening. There was a point.
I see him everywhere too.
Yeah, he gets around, and so we quickly became really close friends because oh, you're here,
Yeah.
He has great ideas about art, so I always appreciate talking to him. And then Ellie Works, who was friends with Isaac, and we didn't do like a pre-interview or anything, but I met her in the process of, hey, we're getting these studios ready, come take a look. And she was just super positive, super excited about the whole idea. Her work was great. And she's maybe the person who I knew the least, but has been so active in those studios, and watching her make has been really exciting. So not to say that we got lucky with Ellie. I mean, I kind of trusted Isaac's judgment, but we did Ellie, Isaac, Shay, and then the two of us. I think I'm very grateful for the kind of the positivity that's in there. Everybody's always open to understanding that this is kind of a work in progress, and that we are working every day to make it as functional and exciting for all of you as it is for us.
It seems like it's a more sustainable model that way, like where you want to be in a space, be in a place and work, spend a ton of time there too, right?
Yep.
I want to talk more about the intention behind bringing in people and the kind of work that they're doing, but I also want to make sure that we shout out, you have a third business partner as well.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah, Stefan. Yeah, so Stefan Callender is a great friend of mine. I did and do a lot of community arts work at Baltimore Clayworks, and he took over as the director of that department 2 years ago now, maybe 2.5. And he is very he's a fantastic artist in his own right. He's also very gifted in terms of like construction things, for lack of a better term. He knows electrical and plumbing and these things in a way that Mary and I don't. And so when we were doing the original walkthrough for the building, Stefan, I asked him, I said, can you just take a look, like, give me your opinion about this place, because there's a lot of work that needs to be done. And he did, and he gave me his opinion. And he expressed that, hey, I'm interested in this kind of like community developing project, which is so in line with what community arts is. Like, I would be interested in this idea. And we were just happy to have him.
Yeah.
And he's been sort of an invaluable, element of our team. He couldn't make it today. He's working, but yes, it is the three of us. And yeah, it's such a collective model that we have 5 artists, we have 3 directors. And I think doing it with less than that would just become sort of what's the word? Increasingly difficult. It's many hands for sure.
Yeah, I think we didn't realize how much we needed Stefan Callender, who is a powerhouse. I don't think we realized in the beginning that we could not have done it if he hadn't stepped in and shared the vision,
right.
and just, I think we were all really motivated to create a space that's good for a community.
Yeah.
And that's kind of this extra thing. Like, it's not just, we want a space where we can really dig deep into our own personal practices. It's this kind of other intangible goal that we'll know when we're doing it right. And, it's hard to kind of pinpoint, but we were all super motivated to try to figure that out. Like, how do we make a space that's welcoming and inclusive and, gets as many people involved as possible? So yeah, Stefan's vision made that feel possible, and then his execution is, I don't know how much longer it would have taken us to get the gallery ready.
Yeah, and a really unique third perspective as well, which is, it's just as important as the resident artist that we have there, is that we're really lucky that Stefan, Mary, and myself all get along, see eye to eye, but come with different perspectives.
Having a business partner that's not on the same page as you, maybe it doesn't bring the same passion or energy, like it can be a bummer.
Yeah.
And it's not, again, the word sustainable, but it's not always sustainable.
Yeah. It makes a difficult project more difficult, if not impossible.
Yeah.
So, I'm really grateful for the team that we have running and the team that we have working there. I think we got really lucky with a lot of that.
So we talked a little bit about the people that are in the studio. Talk to me a little bit about what it's like to also have this gallery space, and I'm assuming sometimes have their work at the gallery. Like you said, it's not just a place for people to work, but you want to invite people in, and there is a business side to the art world. What are you thinking about as you're putting on shows, as you're piecing together work from local artists? Like, what's important to you? What kind of makes that process flow?
I'm really, I'm looking forward to hearing Mary's opinion on this, because we all have, that's a big element of the curation, or a big element of what I was sort of talking about, of we all come with different perspectives, is that we align very much in our sort of curatorial vision, but we also have differences, and finding, that sort of rhythm that we're still working towards. I think it's been really fruitful experience. For me, I like to imagine every event as also an open studio. So openings, closings, anything else that we do in the space, you're also invited to go back and look at the artist's work. We don't, we intentionally have a fairly open floor plan so that you can just walk through and see what they're working on. We have their socials and things so that people can connect with those artists. And so we want them to be visible in every way possible. I'm also really happy that I think everybody's done a couple studio visits now. So like we're bringing people in, and that is a place for the artists to, they're not working out of, some of them were working out of their, apartments like Mary was. And like, that's a tricky spot to have a studio visit in.
Yeah.
So it's a hospitable place in that way. Mary, I talk about your curatorial vision for like how we choose our shows, because I think we're all still figuring that out.
I do think, having any event in the gallery is a chance to invite people back and give people a tour of the back studios. For sure,
like a dynamic kind of experience.
Yeah, and that was hotly debated as we were figuring out the layout for the studios in the back. It was like, how do we make this as easy to walk through and see everything as possible? So I am really happy with the layout that we figured out for those studios. And then in terms of the gallery, I mean, there's an easy flow into the gallery. There's like a long hallway that opens right into the gallery space. And, the main goal was for it to just be professional looking at all times. So, it has these beautiful high ceilings. And then we painted it in white and gray, just to be kind of, as white box, adhering to that aesthetic as closely as possible, so that it was just neutral and professional for anyone who shows their work to kind of get some really great photo opportunities and get lots of eyes on their work. We also wanted it to be a space where people could experiment. So when we invite an artist who are maybe have a higher profile in the area, we hope that it's an opportunity for them to show something unusual or take a chance. And then, in terms of, I think every curator hopes to be, lifting up the quiet excellence voices that aren't always seen. Like every curator is doing that research. And so just as a shout out, if you think that your work is being overlooked and you don't understand why you're not in the shows, it's like people really are trying to find we're all trying to find each other. And so, we are trying to do our due diligence and follow, just some deep research and getting out there and seeing shows. And just trying to, have group shows where, maybe a stronger practice is lifting up a more developing, emerging practice, and, getting these kinds of conversations in there that, where everyone kind of, the rising tide lifting all ships, that kind of goal.
Yeah. It seems like another kind of push-pull though, right? Because we've talked about location. as a curator, you do have this desire to, like you're saying, lift up voices, but then you also have to get people in the door, right? Can you talk a little bit more about that for people who aren't as familiar with the gallery model?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny how how many jobs come with a gallery, and one of them is like marketing.
Yeah.
And so, I think it helps that, again, we kind of have like a diverse group, like Mary, Stefan, and I we have overlap in kind of the groups that we run in, but we also know a lot of people that the other one doesn't. And so communicating, this gallery is here to lots of different kinds of people. And, I think most of the people that we know in Baltimore, between the three of us, like have seen us working hard in the city. And so I'm very grateful that I think most people, when they hear of a new gallery space, are kind of, oh, that's exciting. Like I'm excited to see what those three people have to offer. And there definitely is something to be said for kind of just like natural marketing of like, oh, somebody's doing a gallery space. They see the curation that we're doing. They go, oh, this is exciting. They see the artists that are in there. They go, this is exciting. Like, by just doing, of course it's subjective, but by just doing like a good job, I think that's kind of our best PR is that people see us and go, okay, great. I want to see what's next. I want to keep coming. And so there's that natural hunger in Baltimore. But I think the better job that we do just in our curation of shows, the better it reflects on us. But, there's certainly all different kinds of, trying to bring people in the door. I mean, we think about that with specific artists, for sure. We have those conversations, like who are we bringing in and what is the attention on them. But I think for me, and I think for most of us, the broader idea is just the overall quality of the show. So it is partially about the names that we're bringing in, but I think it's more about what does the show look like as a whole. If it's a well-curated exhibition, even if I don't know anybody in the show or I know everybody in the show, I'm still going to come back to this space because I know they have well-curated exhibitions. I think that's our best advertising model.
And maybe something that is, again, more accessible in a place like Baltimore where, like, again, I'm not 100% sure what the expectations are, but if you're in a space in New York City and you're not bringing in those heavy hitters, it somehow becomes like a letdown. Whereas like here in Baltimore, it feels like the magic really is talent scouting in a way. It's like looking for those fresh new voices. And then, your calling card becomes, you just know that you're going to see some cool stuff if you walk into Red Giant.
Yeah, I think that's the hope.
Yeah. We're all putting our reputations on the line at all times.
Right.
And that's we kind of leverage that as like to keep us in check and keep us at our best. And then, just trying to like inspire each other and inspire the artists to, prepare for a really excellent show.
I want to make sure that we don't forget to talk a little bit about the name Red Giant.
Yeah. Do you want to start? Do you want me to?
I guess I'll start. Well, so the idea, we wanted to name it after something in the natural world. That was, I think, important to all of us. Maybe I pushed for it because I just wanted to, that's just part of my life goal is to just be like reconnecting with the planet as much as possible. And then funny story, we wound up naming it something that's not on the planet at all. And in fact, out there in the galaxy. But I think Red Giant kind of stuck because it's the dying phase of a star. Our own sun will one day become a red giant. And when a star runs out of helium, when it runs out of fuel, the gravitational pull collapses and all the gas expands and it becomes enormous, like 1 million times bigger than it was before. And, it's this kind of idea of this, creativity in a destructive moment, creativity in a collapse. So there's a little bit of just like locating us in a geopolitical time. Of perhaps a collapsing world power.
Yeah, it's a transformative time for the country and for the city and for Market Center where we are in. So I think, again, that kind of like shifting, changing, dynamic quality of a star phase also has a relationship to the shifting dynamics of Baltimore and Market Center more specifically in terms of where we are situated.
The next thing I wanted to talk a little bit about is the Scout Art Fair, which premiered last Artscape 2025. And that was actually, Patrick, the first time that we met.
Yeah.
How was Scout for you? Did you feel like it was a success? What were some of the takeaways from that experience?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was great. I think it capitalizes on something that it just made a lot of sense. I mean, Artscape is such a massive event, and what happened there, and the result was, I think, something so similar to what we've been talking about with Red Giant, is elevating voices in this city that have been doing good, solid work for years and are in this city. And I think we owe so much of that. I mean, there's so many people I can thank for Scout. I don't want to leave anybody out, but Terry Henderson and Derek Adams, I think their fingerprints are all over that. And the fact that they worked so hard in their curatorial vision and just sort of like day-to-day logistics made that fair something that I felt like was really effective. I felt like it, it's the first year of anything. There'll be hiccups, but I think the hiccups were greatly overshadowed by the successes, at least in my experience, and those of most of the people that I talked to around me in other booths.
It seemed like just the sheer amount of people in one space together, like that's one of the things that makes it sort of special or elevates it. It's like you can cover a lot of ground. You can see a lot of cool new voices in Baltimore at one time. And it didn't really seem to me like there was just one type of art. I mean, it was very diverse. I mean, was that sort of the way that you felt as well?
Yeah, I do. And Mary might even be able to speak to it better, because another sort of classic element of an art fair is that I was in my booth for 8 hours a day.
Yeah.
And so Mary was incredibly helpful. She fabricated a good portion of pieces for my work in that show. She, helped me in so many ways make that happen. And I can't say for sure, but I would guess that had much greater opportunity to actually see the fair in its entirety,
I know, right?
Actually walk it, because it was, just by the nature of the beast, kind of more limited for me. I do feel like it was very a wide variety of work, but Mary might be able to speak to that.
Yeah, I was going to say, Mary, how was it for you?
Yeah, I think I did manage to get a kind of bigger picture by walking around more. I mean, what I loved was seeing these solo presentations of work by artists and the like how galleries chose to show up for the Scout Art Fair. Both of those kind of categories were really interesting and informative. Solo artists, galleries, and these cultural institutions like Clayworks, Creative Alliance, and so how who are those who are people choosing to put forward and catch the eyes of people who are walking through an incredibly overstimulating environment.
Yeah.
And it's amazing to see how people would catch attention through creating a very quiet space, like a very quiet booth that stood out as a moment of reprieve, and then a booth where you're like, oh, this just looks like a small gallery, and then you get to know this whole practice based on how they showed up in this one moment, and I think that's what makes art fairs such an exciting aspect of the 21st century gallery model. A lot of people I've heard of have like, they close their brick and mortar spaces and then show up only at art fairs. So you can maintain a kind of like, internet presence. You can be curating the work, presenting documentation of the artists that you represent. And then when you show up in person, it's at something like an art fair where you have the benefit of these huge numbers of people passing through.
God, so much foot traffic.
We did get a time-lapse picture of, for a few hours of Patrick in front of Patrick's booth, and it was astonishing.
It's loony.
Yeah.
I mean, like the lines out the door at the War Memorial, it was like, but also awesome to see, right?
Yep.
A little maybe overstimulating, but it was cool to see that people really showed up.
Yeah. And I think probably a couple times during that fair, I expressed my gratitude to Mary that I had experienced spring break, because it is incredibly overstimulating, but but unlike the year that we met, I had a little bit of a sense of what I was walking into.
Totally.
I mean, the foot traffic in there was way, way greater than any fair that I had done before. But I was kind of familiar with that idea of like, you're going to be here for 8 hours and you're going to be shaking hands and kissing babies.
Totally, though. Yeah, you have to be like a salesperson.
Yeah.
And is the goal to bring Red Giant to a space like Scout?
It's a goal. And to go back to Mary's earlier point, like, I think many people listening to this probably know about Grimaldus, that one of the oldest galleries in the city that is now doing just that. They're closing their brick and mortar and they're participating in the fair scene. And yeah, I think that speaks to the fair scene just offering something unique to galleries that a brick and mortar never really can. I mean, even in New York, I'm sure at most fairs, the highest concentration of galleries come from New York. And that's probably, again, like the one place in the country, if not on the earth, where you have the most critical mass of eyes on your brick and mortar every single day. And they're still packing up their work, shipping it somewhere to get different eyes on it. And so, for other cities, Baltimore, Philly does a lot of fairs too. Like, I do think there's kind of a very unique opportunity in the fairs for galleries. And we're definitely in discussions about that kind of stuff. I mean, I don't know how many other people, I haven't talked to many people about it, but I'm certainly waiting. I know they just announced Artscape. I'm sort of waiting on bated breath to see what the future of Scout is and all of the sort of nitty-gritty details about that. But I can at least speak for myself when I say that I think it would be really exciting for Red Giant to move into a phase where we're participating in fairs potentially locally and potentially not. That we're so new right now that there's so many opportunities on the horizon that we could choose or not choose.
Yeah, I think any of the artists that we have already shown would really benefit from, getting that kind of exposure.
Sure.
And it's kind of like entering a different strata of conversation in the art world, which I think that's what's so exciting about participating as an artist or curator in those shows, is that all of a sudden you're kind of talking about like a national scale and international art motions, and like all of a sudden it's like, oh, okay, well, yeah, I'm into the
the city sort of gets elevated too, right?
Yeah.
Because you get further into that art ecosystem. It's just one more stop on the, I don't know how many other art fairs are the like top art fairs, but to start to shift into being front of mind when those kinds of decisions are being made about like, where do I want to visit? It makes Baltimore maybe more attractive in that way.
Yeah, I think it's really exciting to just enter that conversation and just say like, oh, okay, no, Baltimore has a place in this international art world conversation. And I think that it also has the benefit of just of being maybe unusual. Like, New York announcing another art fair, it's kind of like, okay, who cares?
Yeah.
Like, we get it. But in Baltimore, it's like, oh man, I really want to see how Baltimore does an art fair.
Yeah.
That's a great point. That's a great point.
Yeah, and I don't know if there's any metrics on that, but I mean, Baltimore absolutely showed up for that. And who knows how many people, I'm sure there was plenty from DC and Philly and New York. I'm sure we had some draw from other cities in addition to the draw from Baltimore. Baltimore really showed out. But yeah, it's exciting to have something like that to put us in that conversation that I think as gallery owners, we definitely feel like Baltimore should be in that conversation.
Oh, totally.
So to have an event like Scout, I think is really great for the city.
I wanted to wrap up by thinking toward the future a little bit. How does Red Giant think about fine art continuing to flourish in the city? Like, how are you interacting with neighborhoods? How are you starting to think, even, I know it's in an early stage, but beyond Red Giant, to ensure Baltimore stays connected to this fine arts ecosystem and to make sure that we've just got interesting new work being shown on a regular basis?
Yeah, I mean, one thing that occurred to me about how Red Giant or any Baltimore art gallery would show up at an art fair or show up for its neighbor. It's like we're not in a chokehold. We're not like desperate to sell 6 paintings so that we can pay the rent, and our like gallery staff, because there is no staff. And so, yeah, I think in terms of showing up for the neighborhood, I think just trying to be a little jewel in the crown of the neighborhood, and just to offer a welcoming space for people to come in and gather. That's not their home and not a restaurant. And I think that just adds a level of intrigue to any neighborhood. But it's like, okay, well, you're asking for my intellectual engagement, my emotional engagement, and all of these, just like asking for me to show up as the whole person, and that is what we hope for, that everyone comes in and knows that we're interested in their responses and reactions and whatever their personal contributions are to the art conversation. Like we want to know.
Yeah, we work with the Neighborhood Design Center, the health and wellness committees. There's a bookstore right down the street. We really try to. We have a coffee shop right next to us, so shout out Deer Grove Coffee and Charm City Books and Trinacria Deli and Lexington Market doesn't need any shout out, but we also try to highlight that like this is a really thriving, exciting area. That's talking mostly about Market Center, and then Bromo Arts District is also very exciting. We're an institution that exists in both of those areas, which have slightly different footprints but overlap over us. So that's going to include, your Currents and your Lamondos and your Crow's Nests and MAP, the Maryland Art Place. And so, really trying to, it's funny to me. I don't know many other gallery directors very well, so I don't know how universal of an experience this is. But it's funny to me how much the job of running a gallery or running an effective artist space is also the job of elevating your neighborhood, engaging with your neighborhood, your city. If Market Center wins, if Bromo wins, if Baltimore wins, we win. So the greater good is also to the benefit of us uniquely. And so, we're worried about, beautifying our space and curating good shows and et cetera, all these internal things. But the health and wellness of the people who live in the community around us, the vibrancy of the community, the opportunities that they have in terms of what they can do on a day-to-day basis and what they can see, all those things. And I've been kind of surprised at how like intimately intertwined they are with running an art space.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Mary, Patrick, thank you so much for being here. It's been awesome talking. Wishing the best for Red Giant, and hopefully we'll see you again at Scout.
Thank you, Stuart. Yeah,
thank you.
That would be great. Let's see if the powers that be will decide that is our future.
Powers that be, make it happen.
Yeah, that's us.
If you're listening, let us in, Scout.
Let us in.
Thanks so much to Mary and to Patrick for being on the podcast, and thanks to you for listening. Remember, if you are a creative person with a story to share, reach out at srustin@promotioninarts.org to be featured on the pod. And as always, when creatives thrive, we all rise.